Hello, I'm David Mello, the Supervisor of Children's Services at the Fall River Public Library. One of the fun things I get to do at the library is tell stories. I love telling stories, and I hope you love listening, because I have some fun stories today to share with you. My first story is about this fellow over here, this very popular, cool little cat. His name is Pete. He's the coolest cat going. Nothing upsets Pete. As you'll see in this story, Pete the Cat and His 4 Groovy Buttons by James Dean. Pete the Cat put on his favorite shirt with 4 big, colorful, round, groovy buttons. He loved his buttons so much, he sang this song. My 4 groovy buttons, my 4 groovy buttons. Pop! Oh no! One of the buttons popped off and rolled away. How many buttons are left? Let's count them. 1, 2, 3. I think it's 3. 3! Yes, 3 buttons are left. Did Pete cry? Goodness, no. Buttons come and buttons go. He kept on singing his song. My 3 groovy buttons, my 3 groovy buttons. And Pete says, groovy. But suddenly, pop! Oh no! Another button popped off and rolled away. How many buttons are left? Let's count. 1, 2. Looks like 2. Yes, 2 buttons are left. Did Pete cry? Goodness, no. Buttons come and buttons go. He kept on singing his song. My 2 groovy buttons, my 2 groovy buttons. But then, pop! Oh no! Another button popped off and rolled away. How many buttons are left? Let's count. 1. That was easy. Well, did Pete cry? Goodness, no. Buttons come and buttons go. He kept on singing his song. My 1 groovy button, my 1 groovy button. But suddenly, yes, it's going to happen. Pop! Oh no! The last button popped off and rolled away. How many buttons are left? 0. Did Pete cry? Goodness, no. Buttons come and buttons go. Pete looked down at his buttonless shirt, and what do you think he saw? His belly button. And he kept on singing his song. My buttons still have my belly button. My buttons still have my belly button. And Pete says, it's all good. I guess it simply goes to show that stuff will come and stuff will go. But do we cry? Goodness, no. We keep on singing. Buttons come and buttons go. Buttons come and buttons go. Because it's all good. And that's Pete the Cat and his 4 groovy buttons. Now, my next story is about a little bear. who goes to bed one night and thinks that there's something under the bed. We'll see if there really is something under his bed in this story called Under the Bed by David Wood and Richard Fowler. Dad, there's a monster under the bed. Dad says, go to sleep. Dad, says Little Bear, it's got a huge body. Well, I never, says Papa Bear, trying to fall asleep. Dad, and it's got 2 ugly heads. Please, go to sleep. Poor Papa Bear, he's tired. Dad, it's got 3 bulging eyes and what's on his nose? Ha, ha, ha. Very funny. Dad's getting a little annoyed. Dad, it's got scaly hands with 6 spiky claws. Go to sleep now. Oh, Dad's getting really grumpy. Dad, oh, Dad, it's got 8 hairy legs with knobby knees. That's enough, says Papa Bear, rolling around in the bed. Oh, he needs his sleep bad. Dad, it's got a great big mouth with 10 sharp teeth. Listen, there is no monster with a huge body, 2 ugly heads, 3 bulging eyes, warts on his nose, scaly hands with spiky claws, 8 hairy legs with knobby knees, and a great big mouth with 10 sharp teeth under your bed. Dad, not under my bed. It's under your bed. What a surprise. And that's Under the Bed. My next story is called Mom's Little Monkey. Now, how many of you out there have been called Mom's Little Monkey before? I'm sure a few of you. In this story by Keith Faulkner, we'll see what other names Mom has for this little fellow in Mommy's Little Monkey. Uh-oh, already he was naughty. I see some chalk drawing on the walls. Sometimes, when Jack's having fun, his mom calls him a little monkey. Sometimes, when Jack's been out to play, his mom says he's a messy puppy. Sometimes, when Jack's done something naughty, his mom calls him a little monster. I'm sure none of you have ever heard that before. Sometimes, when Jack's rushing around, his mom calls him a busy little, yes, you've got it, bee. Sometimes, when Jack makes her laugh, his mom calls him a silly clown. But when Jack's fast asleep, his mom just calls him her little angel. And that's Mom's little monkey. And now, for our last story, we'll say hello to Mrs. McNaught and the Great Big Squash. By Sarah Weeks. The first day of spring, Mrs. Nellie McNaught went out to her garden and planted a squash. She pushed the seed in with the tip of her toe, and the minute she did it, it started to grow. At first it was round and as big as a head. In fact, it looked just like the paper boy Fred. Then it turned yellow and bumpy and fat. It rolled down the garden and flattened the cat. It knocked over trash cans and ran over toes. It twisted the sprinkler and plugged up the hose. It crashed through the clothesline and smashed through the fence, scaring the pants off of two elderly gents. Poor Nellie was worried. She said, "Oh my gosh, there's got to be some way to slow down this squash." She slapped it and scolded it, pinched it and kicked it, and then she took hold of the stem and she picked it. "Now what do I do?" wondered Mrs. McNaught. "I've got to find something to do with this squash. There isn't a place in the world it will fit. It's as big as a house." "Wait," said Nellie. "That's it." And so by the light of the moon, and so by the light of a big yellow moon, she scooped and she scraped with a long-handled spoon. And when the sun rose, where was Nellie McNaught? Curled up, sound asleep, in her big yellow squash. And that's Mrs. McNaught and the big yellow squash. Oh, hi, I'm just coloring in my Pete the Cat here. And if you'd like to make your own Pete the Cat, you can visit the Fall River Public Library. Go down to the children's room and ask for your own Pete the Cat coloring sheet, and you'll get one just like this. Color in Pete the Cat, and once he's all colored in, take the yellow t-shirt that we'll give you, and you will get to put some glue, or if you have tape at home, attach it to Pete. Give him a nice yellow t-shirt like so. And then, once his t-shirt is on, you can give him 4 groovy buttons, just like in the story that we just read together. How's that?